worship at 10:30 on Sunday mornings on Zoom and on Facebook Live and YouTube Live as well. Glad you could be with us today. This is the final video cast of the present series, and we'll be taking a break for a few weeks to do Easter and a post-Easter series on it's on Sabbath, and it didn't seem right to be doing more work on a day that we're trying to encourage people to do nothing at all, nothing productive at all anyway. So we're going to take that time off and then regroup and then come back with a vengeance, so to speak, after that, with a new series that will be about listening for the Holy Spirit, it's called Listen. So looking forward to that. I want to start off the bat, though, acknowledging that during this series, we've had a number of small groups gathering, and so a couple of them have met immediately following the Converging Paths video cast, one led by Chris Moore and the other by Rick Bonetti this evening. And I want to thank you for your leadership in those groups. And we've also had another couple of groups meeting, one led by Nan Wagner, and another by Gary and Janine Vaughn. And so it's just been a tremendous joy to have so many people moving through, reflecting on the pandemic and the realities we face and how we might emerge beyond it. And this evening, my special guest is actually you all who are coming here live. You are the guests, and the topic really is kind of, when push comes to shove, we've been, how then shall we live, post-pandemic? And I thought we'd take it on a couple of different tacks, starting with just how the pandemic has maybe flipped your own inner tables. We're doing this on Palm Sunday and reminding of how Jesus flipped the tables on the money changers. And the pandemic has kind of turned all of our worlds on its heads, and sometimes what's right side up goes upside down, but sometimes with respect to God's perspective or more of a spiritual understanding, a lot of things we exist in normal world upside down, and something comes along and flips them right back up. And particularly interested in that is what in post-pandemic, as we reflect on the pandemic, what has maybe turned something upside down on you, but you've, in hindsight, seen it to have been turned right side up. And I thought we'd look at that just on a personal level first, and then we would, for a few minutes, and then we'll transition and look at how this works corporately as a church. But now that I've inserted that in your mind, we want to go to our opening video, so you have a couple minutes to think about this before we come back. This was a video that was actually shot in April of last year, so think about where everything was in April. And this is it really doesn't need much explanation. It's a video from YouTube that's kind of funny about the pandemic.
Oh, whoa. Who are you?
I'm Julie from 4 Months in the Future.
Actually?
Oops. Wait a minute.
Are you here to tell me what's going to happen?
Yeah. Because of the butterfly effect.
Here, I've been doing so well during this series, and then I completely screwed up the tech on this one. Just a second. Okay, now we're ready to watch.
Oh, whoa. Who are you?
I'm Julie from 4 Months in the Future.
Actually? Are you here to tell me what's going to happen?
Yeah. Because of the butterfly effect, I can only really give you some loose details, but we'll go through the basics. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So, do you want the good news or the bad news?
Oh, good news?
Yeah. Yeah. Great choice. Yeah. Cool. So, things have never been better for climate change.
No, that's great.
Dolphins in the Venice canals.
Really?
I know. Well, I saw it on Facebook. I don't know if it's a real thing. My aunt posted it, but it seems pretty legit.
Oh, okay. Well, that's incredible. Especially given the Australian wildfires.
The what? Oh, yeah.
Because, those are pretty, I think those are going to be the defining feature of 2020.
Yeah, you'd think.
Oh, no?
Not even a little bit.
Really? Because they're a pretty big deal.
Yeah, your definition of a pretty big deal is going to change for sure.
Wow. Okay, so what is the bad news then?
You are going to want to pull all your investments.
What?
Yeah, just get everything out of the stock market. Get it all out.
Oh, it's a recession.
You know what? Put a little money in Zoom.
Isn't that a conferencing app?
Yes, trust me.
Okay. While we're being proactive here, actually, if you could just do a Costco run real quick.
That's going to save you a lot of hassle.
Costco.
Do you have any hobbies?
You know, just something to keep you busy. No, not really.
You should get a dog.
I want a dog. You know, I want a dog. They're a lot of work, and you've got to walk. You got to go outside with them twice a day.
Right. The walks are going to be clutch.
Right, but I mean, I have to leave them because I have so much travel coming up.
Oh, no, you don't.
But yeah, I travel for work.
Oh, you won't be working.
But how do I afford stuff?
Do you take vitamins or juice?
No.
Okay, it might be a good time to just, get that body in tip-top shape. Get strong. Get those lungs to pumping. Cardio, little aerobics.
What the hell is gonna happen?
Look, I know it all sounds scary, but it's really not that bad, For you, right? I mean, for some people, it's not, but for you, it's really not bad. I would, would you rather be in a busy shopping mall or at home on the couch watching Netflix?
The couch?
Exactly. You're gonna be just fine.
Okay.
What do you know about the world of big cats?
Oh my. If only we could have seen the future back early in 2020. So now that we are looking in hindsight, I'm going to invite, you can just unmute yourself as you see fit. But just if you just interested, first of all, just where the tables got turned on you and where maybe, we know all the bad and the painful things that happen that are still bad and painful, but are there some things that may have happened that may have even been bad and painful, but also served as to help maybe write your course a little bit, or at least change things in a better direction? Anybody? Yeah, you're Rick.
Well, I was struck by one of the phrases in the book. It said, "A pandemic is too important to waste, and this pandemic wakes us up." And so I think the pandemic and the climate change are interrelated. That we are basically intruding into space, into the wilds, and the pandemic is a product of that. So I think it's a good time for us to basically change our. I mean, we've seen a destruction of several of the systemic issues related to institutions and racial injustice and a whole series of things. And I think we need to reform those. So that's kind of what I'm looking forward to.
I wonder if maybe more of a, I mean, obviously there's a lot of people who still, science seems to not resonate with them at all, surprisingly, but maybe there's a few more people who will say, oh, we didn't really pay much attention to the science and look what it led us in the pandemic, and we haven't been paying much attention to the science on climate change either. Maybe we better take that more seriously.
Yeah, but I think we need to think of a new normal as opposed to going back to just the way things were.
Okay, so less travel, less going out,
right,
and less consumption. Yeah, good. How about anybody else?
I was thinking about how isolated I felt. I'm so social, and I missed out, no more choir on Wednesdays and Sundays and all that kind of thing. Had been involved in Call to Care, and we reached out a lot more with Call to Care. And as a result, I have some friends I didn't have before. I have some deeper relationships. Phil Oliver talked about Zoom coffee hour. It's more personal. It's more you and I right now together. And I think it really helped me, well, develop friendships and develop in a different way. Although I still miss all the social stuff, but it was great.
Yeah. That's a comment I've heard so much from people, especially when I first got here, was starting to talk with people, just how much better people are getting to know each other, through this platform. It's interesting. Maybe once we get back into physical worship, we'll have to bring laptops with us so we can get on Zoom and be be on chat afterwards.
In my life, or Ted's and mine, I don't know that a whole lot was upended because we've been retired for so long, and so the only thing that we couldn't do was do all of our sort of concerts and plays, and so I don't know. It hasn't been horrible. I did do a little bit more of quilting that I hadn't done for a long time, and now I'm beginning to go through photo albums and dump things that I don't need. So I'm looking at that kind of stuff. And post-pandemic, well, I'm looking forward to just being able to go out and about a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Maybe that absence of freedom there helps us appreciate those freedoms we had a little bit more. Mm-hmm.
We have a son and daughter-in-law and a sort of still new toddler granddaughter in Eugene. And we were getting down there to spend a little time with them, maybe once every other month before the pandemic hit. And ever since, we've evolved into a weekly gathering with them at 8 o'clock or 8:30 on Thursday morning every week. And now our daughter, who lives in Berlin, Germany, joins us also. It's the evening for her, morning for us. And we're in touch, I think, more regularly even with our other kids and grandkids who live in Fresno, California. That's a surprise. I mean, we miss the face-to-face presence, especially at first, but what's emerged out of that is far more regular contact and really in some ways deeper, not only with family, but with friends. You know, when you're not going out to meet at a restaurant every month, you might get together every other week, on Zoom for an hour. Right. So that's been an unexpected benefit of what seemed at first like a kind of a table turning loss.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Anybody familiar with Zoom cocktail parties?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. We had the same effect with our people we haven't seen in years, actually, that we've been doing Zoom with, having a cocktail and getting caught up.
Yeah, that's true.
One of the things that surprised me, I guess, over the last year has been the increased online programming that I've been able to participate in. Sort of in contrast to what Elaine was saying about missing live events, the breadth and the quality of programming that's available both locally and nationally that I would have never been able to participate in before. It's been pretty amazing, what's been offered through the Zoom channel. And it's so much easier to participate virtually, even than driving downtown, paying for parking and attending something. But overall, it's the quality of the programming has just been superb.
Yeah, you're the one who actually turned on to some of that was going on. The Kate and the Crocodiles and Pink Martini. I think they were actually creating new concerts. Just you could buy a ticket and have a ticket a concert that streams just to the people on Zoom, and that was great fun.
You'll have to tell me more about how to do that, because I can't figure out how to go to the ballet or to Portland Center Stage and get their stuff.
There hasn't been a lot of venues. I was surprised at the with that P5 group that we're kind of leased to. Weren't doing more things like that, because boy, they really could attend a lot of things that you may not have attended normally this way. So some people are getting creative. Yeah, Bruce, do you have any advice for anybody who wants to tap into that?
No, but I think, depending on what you're connected to, there is a lot of programming available. I don't know about the, Oregon Ballet or even the theaters locally, but you can find it regionally and nationally, increasingly, I think, and I hope some of that continues, because there wouldn't have been any way for me to participate in some of that otherwise.
Yeah.
Checking the websites of groups that you're interested in following might be a way to let you know what they're streaming live on or otherwise. We've had some success using that as a technique.
Oregon Historical Society has done some terrific programming on racism in Oregon and a whole range of issues, for example, with excellent speakers.
Yeah.
And every college and university in the country seems to be putting stuff up to follow, which is also very interesting.
Well, why don't we take a look at just our church as a community of faith? Are there any things that you think we ought to be taking with us into the future? I've already heard loud and clear, and we were talking about before the video class, the video cast got going, that we should probably be doing more Zoom, continue doing Zoom in the future for small groups, things like that, and also providing a way of streaming worship in some way, and that we were definitely working on that. I think Zoom or something like Zoom is part of our long-term future. But what else?
I wanted to say that it's not just the pandemic, but it's the year 2020. It's the political situation in 2020 has just brought into relief all the inequalities in our life. Black lives matter and Black lives don't matter. Asian lives matter, and just the inequality that exists in our society, in our Portland. We just don't have enough housing that's affordable for folks, and therefore more homeless people. Although homelessness has to do with more than just not being able to afford housing, but just all the ways in which our society has been so greedy, so intent on it. It's all about making money and not enough about taking care of people or making sure that people's lives matter. So more than ever, our church needs to be front and center, somehow doing some kind of ministry to alleviate the suffering of folks, more than we're doing now, even.
Yeah.
Sorry. Talk about a story that's ripped from the headlines, as the saying goes. You were talking about engaging with homeless people in the service this morning, Eric, and I went back and read more closely a story on the front page of the Oregonian that says lending a hand to neighbors in need Some
Yeah.
neighborhood associations assist homeless residents rather than trying to eject
Mhm.
them.
Yeah.
And it starts off talking about a man in a tent who is an arm's reach from a downtown Portland church. And if you read further in the story, you might have run across this picture, which appears to be on Madison Street on the side of our church, where some outreach people are talking with some homeless people in tents.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was an article, it was in Oregon Live too. And there are like 15 different neighborhood associations who are walking around the areas of homelessness in the different parts of Portland and handing out water, socks, granola bars, those kinds of things. And I guess they do it at least on a weekly basis, maybe more often than weekly. And so instead of complaining and trying to push the homeless away, they're walking around the areas of the homeless and trying to, fulfill some of their needs.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be something I suppose the church could get involved with.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think there's going to be more of that too. Think about all the people who are not homeless simply because the government has had a freeze on evictions.
Mhm.
They've had some financial relief too, but all the people who would be homeless if that wasn't the case, and when it goes away, or with climate change, with all the climate change refugees that we can anticipate in the future, and economic upheavals. Yeah, it seems like we need to get our act more together on homelessness than ever before.
Well, and I don't know if is somebody else talking? I don't know if you know that, of course, it probably wouldn't work now, but we did have homeless veterans in the chapel for a year or 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
That, the church offered that, but that was, I don't know, 5 years ago now. Time goes by so fast.
And you've done the picnics in the park too, right? On a regular basis before the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I understand there was also, I just heard the other day, somebody was telling me about, there was a time when somebody had idea to take the homeless kids and youth and they were making pizzas at the church and teaching them.
Yeah.
Deliver
That
them.
was like 10 or 15 or 20 years ago. And they used the church kitchen and they sold the pizzas on the front porch. Yeah. And I guess that was a wonderful thing too. That's an idea that could maybe be revived.
Yeah, that'd be neat.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, I'd have to
But
check.
that was a long time.
Yeah.
So the church has done stuff, but it's a long time ago. There was also, it's not homelessness, but there was also a daycare center in the church for quite a while. And again, that was 20, 25, maybe 30 years ago. And they used the downstairs. Oh,
It was, my daughter almost went to it. She's 40 and she was almost enrolled as a 6-month-old.
Oh my.
Okay. Yeah. Alrighty. So that was 40 years ago then.
Wow.
I already spoke before, but I've thought a lot about the kids who really missed out on schooling, who didn't have parents at home, who didn't have computers, who aren't reading. And I was thinking if there was some way that we could take children into our church and tutor them somehow. I mean, there's so many children that need help to catch up.
Yeah.
Oh, and that would fit in with, I've read, I guess, I don't know, online, I just read all the news online, but they're talking about summer school. And maybe that would be a way to do something beginning in the summer and then continue on through the school year even.
Oh, that's interesting.
To be most effective, does it make sense to try to engage in some collective action with other downtown churches, especially those on the park blocks? I believe in collective action, but I don't know the politics of that or how it's worked in the past.
Oh, that's an idea too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if there's even anything through the art museum, because the art museum reaches out to the schools. Of course, their focus is more trying to get kids and teachers connected with the art, but there might be some way to work through a learning program through the art museum too. And even the historical society, because they would have school tours at the historical society, at the museum.
Yeah. These are the kinds of ideas you get them out there, and somebody says, "Oh, that's a good idea. I want to work on that. I want to form a group on that." And
all of the downtown churches, to go back to that point, are undoubtedly asking themselves the same kind of questions we are right now.
Yeah.
And several of us downtown churches have relatively new ministries. So I hope that you have an opportunity, Eric, to make some connections, if you haven't already, to see what's going on in other places and what we might do productively together.
definitely planning on that. My focus has been on you first, and with the pandemic especially too. But you're doing the one-on-one conversations. But that's the next circle out is exactly the block churches and beyond.
And that reminds me of the revels that, of course, it was before. I don't know who's on here. I haven't paid attention, but the revels again was 40 years ago, Ted? Where the downtown churches and the museum and the historical society got together and just for one day in the early Advent season would have a day of like readings and maybe little plays and a food court. Well, anyway, the church had a food place. And maybe that's the kind of thing that something connected with that could be something that you could work out.
One thing that's going to be evident when and if the pandemic does quell, and I'm a little hesitant to get too into planning because we may be looking at a fourth surge here. We don't know, but there are a lot of people who are really hesitant to come downtown. Don't want to get any place near it. It's become a frightening territory because of news coverage of what's been going on, so focusing our activities on downtown may be very different than it once was.
Yes.
Yeah, that's kind of my thought on that, is that a lot of these ideas are kind of based on an old order of cultural power or something like that. Like the downtown area right now, I don't see a whole lot of organizations, sort of centering their work there. But if we look broader, there's Don't Shoot PDX and all kinds of like East Side, Northeast Side organizations, speaking of like doing mentorship and reading and helping people that are falling behind in school. If we partnered outside of the faith communities and didn't make it a church thing, that's the one thing I wanted to throw in about like what I've taken from the pandemic is the importance of relationships. I've always been an issue-driven guy, and a sort of do the right thing and act for justice, but during all of the crises during the pandemic, I've learned that a lot of times those of us that act out of social justice warriorhood often are troubled by the same kinds of things that we think we're fighting against, and the more mature people who are able to just stay in a community through relationships, have that thing that can help the broken world, and I think that we've got a lot of that here, I mean, half of you are ministers. We can partner with lots of broader places, homelessness solution centers that already exist, Black community organizations, and really drive that. Like the thing that brings me back to this church is the relationships, sort of the patience of the elders. Whereas I thought what drew me to the church was sort of the righteousness of our cause, but that's not. It doesn't turn out that's a very stable force. Anyway.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting.
I wanted to say, Kyle, thank you for mentioning the fact that there are already a lot of organizations in town that have already figured out how to do it or what to do. And I think that we should be connecting with them rather than trying to reinvent or try to invent something that we do of our own. I really
agree. Yeah.
think it's a way to build community and a way to support things that are already going on.
And as part of building community, our community, I just wanted to throw in one other thing that I was talking with Ann Lasky about the other day, and that is perhaps reaching out to some of the people who have left our church in the last 10 years, who were leaders in our church and left for specific reasons that very likely have nothing to do with what's going on or feelings at the church right now. I'm thinking, of people who've been moderators who have left. I'm interested in that, and I'm going to be making a call, for instance, to Charlie Hinkle and Ross Runkle as soon as I can find them.
And I've heard stories of people coming around because they've received calls from congregation members and have really appreciated that, who have made their way back to First Congregational because of that.
Leslie, in the case of the two people you mentioned, you can find them in the bar directory. That should be pretty accessible for you.
That's what I've been using, yes. I think it's a question, maybe more than anything, of getting a call back.
Yeah.
And deciding to call again before I get a call back. Yeah. I don't know anything about the politics of why those people left. So in some ways I might be a good person to talk to them. They're people I knew outside of the church as well as inside the church. And I was very sad to hear that, they had left, each of them for different reasons.
Yeah.
Or no reason.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to say that one of the incredible things moving forward has been the work, and I know it is a tremendous amount of work, in piecing together sort of individual performances into music. And, hats off to Grant and everyone who's been involved with that. I used to love watching Playing for Change, but to know that it's being done locally, it's an incredible thing. I also want to emphasize what Margaret and Kyle and Leslie were saying about not trying to create ourselves as a hub again, and not to try to duplicate what may have happened 20 or 30 or 50 years ago. Repentance does not mean that we go back to being what we were. It means turning around and moving into a new direction. And I think that is one of the most incredible gifts, of this pandemic and physically isolated world, is that we can be more intentional in how we participate in coffee hour. We can be more intentional in what this Zoom as kind of a new printing press, and the printing press made the Protestant Reformation possible, putting a Bible in every home, that there is this opportunity ahead. And I think, Leslie, something that you brought up reminds me of my experience. When I was a university student, I taught Sunday school at the First Congregational Church of a city that I won't mention right now. And years later, when I transferred from the Presbyterian into the UCC ordination system, someone said, well, we see that you did this. Why didn't you begin this process back then? And I said, well, no one from the UCC asked me. And we need, this is an opportunity to make contact. I mean, if we talk about relationships and the web of who we are, if we are not embodying that, if we're not picking that up, then we will go back to a pale imitation of what we would like to be and not what we can be.
Hear, hear.
Given the color of most of our skin, being a paler version would be pretty pale. Yeah, Rick, I think I saw your hand up earlier.
Yeah, I suppose everyone is struck a little bit differently, and I tend to have a less, well, I'm not connected to your downtown area. I don't have any history with the church and that sort of thing. What strikes me is that during the pandemic, it's been a time of slowing down and being more thoughtful and editing and really trying to decide what things are our own personal callings that we have a passion for and some talent for doing. I'm drawn particularly to addressing climate change and systemic issues that are related to that, because they're existential issues. Our biodiversity and climate is going to have such a broad, a long-lasting effect, and we have such a short time to react. Yeah. So, I think it's now is a time to not repeat the past, but look forward to what are the issues and what can we do specifically in terms of advocacy. Some people want to do hands-on. It's going to be difficult to do hands-on in the next, probably even for the next 6 months at least. Sure. So I think it's a matter of focus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a very rich discussion, and obviously what will be continued. In fact, I'd like to invite you all to put a date on your calendar of April 17th, which is a Saturday. The church council has decided to kind of call a retreat together for anybody who'd like to really dig in even more deeply about how we emerge as a post-pandemic church, and the idea being that the church council will kind of process this feedback and kind of come up with a proposal for how we move forward that then would go back to the congregation and have a congregational meeting over and a kind of a discernment period. If we're ready, if the proposals, at least if there's a big one, then we'd have a discernment period and go from there. So, but April 17th is when we really want to gather everybody for an extended period of time. Don't ask about the details yet because they haven't been worked out. Is it all going to be all on Zoom, or is there going to be any kind of live component or face-to-face or socially distanced or anything? But that is a date to definitely reserve. I also would be remiss. I see in the chat here, my own mother did offer a comment, so I hate to pass my own mother by, and so I'll end my part by offering her feedback too. This is harkening back to the tutoring. She says, our church in Bend has a devoted group of people that go to one of the schools every Tuesday to tutor some kids after school. Their parents, of course, need to agree to the project since they need to pick up the kids afterward. I believe we serve some 24 kids. Each year, the kids get to choose if they want to be tutored. Might be there at the church in downtown Portland or would appreciate the help. Or might there be a church in downtown that would appreciate the help? And of course, as we've been observing too, there could be tutoring online too, not just face-to-face with kids perhaps. Well, the way to move things forward is to be keep in conversation, and also as people have ideas about how the pandemic has affected you and how you might want to invite the church into more collective action. It's great to start small groups who use that as a focus. So if you do have an idea, you want to move it forward, such as tutoring or what have you, we can provide ways for you to raise your hand and say, hey, anybody else out there want to be involved? So you can reach out to me or the church office or our moderators, and let's start some small groups too that pursue some of these areas. Well, thank you so much for anybody who also want to just, I know there are a couple people who haven't said anything yet. Anybody who hasn't said anything want to, I know we're going over a little bit, but want to see if those of you who haven't had a chance to say anything have anything you want to offer before closing. All right. Sounds good. Well, I know we've got small groups to go to as well, but hey, it's been a joy to be with you this past, was it 8 weeks for this series? And once again, we'll go dark for the next, until we move through the next series after Easter for 4 weeks, and then we'll be back online and it may not be the same day or time, but just kind of evaluating all that. So if you have comments too, you want to send me, if you have feedback about Converging Paths, things to think about as I kind of think about the future of it, by all means, email me. It's just eric.elness@gmail.com. So thanks so much, and enjoy your small groups tonight. And once again, thank you to those small group leaders for being such wonderful leaders for this series. It's been a very rich experience. Thank you for coming to Converging Paths each week too.
Thank you.
Take care.
In the middle of the forest,